Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Today's video is on the Queen of Swords, and my take on this individual. If I refer to this as representing um, a person that I refer to as like a she or something, just know that I think that this archetype, while potentially being a feminine individual, is in no ways necessarily a female individual. So just qualities associated with like personality psychology, like agreeableness, disagreeableness, neuroticism, things like that. But yeah, just so I don't keep switching or using the term they when referring to this specific individual. So I think this represents someone that you could be dealing with in your life that wants they want they want action. They want to tag along with someone who is, let's say, a man of action. But they don't want that to be accompanied by an overactive or maybe even an active mind. They want they want somebody with a relatively simple and stripped down life philosophy that they are initiated in pursuing actively. And this, I believe, this is the backlash. It's this kind of attitude is the result of the backlash and rejection of some other individuals, authority figures, I would say probably in the form of family members that have expectations of this individual. If I had to be really specific, and just putting it out there so you get an idea, it doesn't have to be this specific, but something like a family of lawyers, or a family of judges, police detectives, some things, things that require analysis of the facts, maybe philosophy professors, but something that involves the analysis of truth, facts, insofar as how they fit into sort of political and judicial worldview. So it might be like the kind of parents where it's like, listen, I'm a lawyer. Your grandfather's been a lawyer. Your great grandfather was a lawyer. You're going to be a lawyer. And then this person is like, no, I want to run away with, the leader of the pack. He's got his sunglasses that he wears all the time, even at night, and a leather jacket. And he doesn't really say that much. And maybe he's a little sad or something, but he's a man of action, right? Um, so it's kind of like a rejection in some way of those expectations and pressures put on this individual by those kind of superior parental figures. It could also be pressure from society, from the friend group, let's say, but I'm guessing it's probably like an expectation of like family to walk in the footsteps of your family. Like, this is how we do things at our family, and so the contrast between what, let's say, the family expects and what this person is pursuing in rebellion of that is it's a very interesting contrast. Both sides have their strengths and weaknesses, pretty much like all things, especially all things tarot. And on one hand, there is stillness of body on the side of the pressures from the family, the pressures from the world. It's a stillness that is necessary. Maybe necessary is not the right word. Like, let's say you show up somewhere. You show up to some sort of I don't know. Let's say there's like a party. Someone's having a house party. You show up at the house party. A lot of people will, when they get there, they'll kind of freeze and they'll look around and they won't really move until they feel like they've gotten a good idea of what's happening, who's there, what the mood of the party is. They need to take in the facts before they can make a decision. So the active mental process, the stage of high activity in the mind of observing, judging, weighing things, assembling the evidence into hierarchies. There's a lot of activity there, but in the physical realm, it's kind of paralyzing. You end up you're frozen, right? And so this individual's rejection of that is like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to be the kind of person that walks into the party and there's only one thing that matters. Where's the beer? I go straight to the kitchen. I look in the fridge. That's always what I do. I don't need to know anything about the party. Or something like, where's the cute girls at? But whatever. It's this kind of lack of mental activity where you're like, I don't need to scout out the environment. I already know what my priorities are. The situation, the arrangement of the environment is irrelevant. I'm always going to prioritize the same things, whether it's a good idea to prioritize them, whether it's a bad idea. But at least I never have to stop and think about things because I know what my priorities are, right? And this is an archetype, represents, an individual who is drawn to the kind of people that have that. Because it's also important to mention that this individual that this card represents, they themselves they're not at that point. They are still kind of the analytical, still they're seated, right? Like, it's one of the things with all the queens and kings, even though the kings are a little bit different, they're not mobile, right? So this individual, still isn't, they're not what they want to be. They're not who they want to hang out with to try and hopefully get some of that to rub off on them. Not to mention, you hang out with action-oriented individuals, there's going to be all sorts of sexy things rubbing off on you sooner or later. Hey, look, it's the Casanova deck, always with the boobs. There's an element of comedic irony that, if this was a character in a movie, they would at some point in the third act probably realize that this whole time they've just been rebelling against their nature, and ultimately this isn't who they are. But at this point in time, this individual is, in some way kidding with themselves, deluding themselves. Now, it's important to state that these types of rebellions, they're not unwarranted, right? There are major, real, issues with being overly analytical, with trying to get to the final analysis, as though something like that even exists. To arrive at the final analysis before committing to any action is like, that's essentially signing up for just permanently being paralyzed, because the world's always changing. It's like, it's impossible, or at least very difficult, to gather all the information you need to make, an objective judgment about the truth and reality of the world around you faster than the world can change, right? So there are some people that just, they're like, my entrepreneurial friends, I kind of took the route of like, I'm going to open a bar and I'll figure it out as I go along, right? And a lot of people criticize me. They were like, you need a better plan than that, And I was like, yeah, but I just want to get going, and I feel like if I if I start planning, it could be another 2 years before I feel like I've come up with the perfect plan or a plan perfect enough to move on. And even then, it's like, what is that plan really going to account for every little thing that might come up? There will still be unpredictable consequences. But those very same people, that said that I was wrong, many of them themselves never ended up starting the business that they were planning to open, because their business plan kept changing. Just when they thought they had a pretty good business plan figured out, it'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm starting to realize that this cold brew coffee thing is a trend, and maybe instead of opening the coffee shop, I could actually start just the business doing the brewing, and then selling it to the coffee shops. And then before they're done researching that, it's like, oh, you know what? That's not the best. There's always a better thing, right? At some point, you gotta jump in. I mean, if you want to get things done. So the rebellion against that kind of, persistent analysis, is a reasonable one to some extent. Another accurate or correct reason for that kind of rebellion is that also people are wrong. And now this could be greatly exaggerated. Let me clarify. Let's say you've got this parent or authority figure that's like, listen, the way we do things is we weigh all of the options, we carefully plan things out, we make lists, we crunch the numbers, we do the calculations, whatever, right? Sooner or later, those people make mistakes. Like, everybody makes a mistake sooner or later. Often, an individual like this sort of Queen of Swords individual, they'll adopt this rebellious stance, and they'll say, look, Mr. Smarty Pants, we're all about the details and figuring everything out. What about that time where you got that thing wrong? What about that other time where you got that thing wrong? They'll point to those individual, events to essentially try and argue against their whole position. And, this generally tends to be like a greatly exaggerated and not very good argument, because generally those individuals, say those parents or whatever, sure, they're wrong here and there, but it's like once in 100 times, which is like pretty good odds, right? But when parents ask a lot of you or of this character, it could be easy to mistake their expectations for, persistence, hard work. It could be easy to mistake that for the demands for perfection, right? Like, so it's kind of rebelling against this idea, like, I can't be this thing you want me to be if you expect me to be perfect, which is probably not the case realistically. But again, then attacking them whenever they fail to achieve the perfection that this Queen of Swords character believes that, that's being expected of her. But yeah, so this, there are some valid reasons to do this. Lastly, and maybe the thing that's important to consider in terms of like the final irony that often gets a Queen of Swords like this to snap out of this, kind of romantic pursuit of this sort of action person, bad boy, man of few words, is the realization that very attraction to that individual is fundamentally based on abstractions, cognitive, clearly thought out abstractions, little check boxes. The person that the Queen of Swords might have the hots for could be like a Knight of Wands type, or the charioteer of the chariot. but those relationships are, the individual on the other end is not as cerebral. They're not going to be, if they're attracted back to this Queen of Swords, it'll be like just some sort of passionate sexual attraction, and not this, oh yeah, the kind of woman that I'm looking for is the woman who rejects overly abstracted approaches to developing a world, philosophy. Like, it's not going to be that kind of person. So I kind of like the idea of thinking about, the person that the Queen of Swords is going to be into is gonna bring her flowers, and the thing that she's going to appreciate about having flowers brought to her is not going to be the same thing that motivated that individual to bring her those flowers. And generally, once this person figures out that difference exists, they'll realize that that the whole basis for that kind of attraction or desire is just kind of bankrupt. And that could be a pretty rough realization. But yeah, in general, this could be kind of like a sort of irrational individual to interact with, that is, superficially attracted to qualities that they think are the antithesis of what they're rebelling against, when in fact they are using and invoking those very things in the process of, selecting this individual, being attracted to them. So mostly I would say this is just kind of someone you could just try and steer clear of. If this type of individual is attracted to you, it's probably because of some superficial details that they notice about you. They've identified you as something based on, the things you have, the things you do, and those things are so attractive to this person's state of mind that they completely overshadow, like, not only do they overshadow your personality, your ideas, your beliefs, but they serve as a smokescreen. This is the kind of person who would look at you and say, I just love the fact that she goes out and does rock climbing and I don't know what, and just lists off details, that they just like to go out and have fun and do things. It's like, and that's kind of like a smokescreen to cover up the fact that you also have beliefs, that you have also made, you've also carried out judgments. You are also the byproduct of your own life philosophy and your values. But, this person would rather believe that you're just this animated, living, thriving thing, right? I guess could be flattering in some scenarios, but sooner or later, this person's gonna realize that this is like that they're essentially fetishizing you. So I would maybe just skip the problems, or at least be wary of the what would probably be an inevitable outcome in this type of scenario. I'm going to wrap things up here. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. You can drop me a like if you did. Feel free to comment. Free reading if you would like to be entered into a draw for the weekly free one-on-one reading wheel spinning contest thing that I do. Yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll be back with a video tomorrow. Take care.